played a lot of 3-on-3. You always have to use your summers in different ways. You get that 2 hours. So we tried to make it real competitive and play a lot of 3-on-3 because that's kind of how I've been brought up. I believe it's a great skill development game. So we made it competitive, played a lot, and then obviously being mindful of the 30-second shot clock. I don't think we'll know until you get into the season. And I understand they did it for the NIT, but now coaches have had time to work with it in practice, plan defenses. Perhaps you're going to see more containment zones to chew a little of the shot clock, and then maybe they'll fall back into zone, soft man-to-mans. There's different things that people will probably do with the clock. So I think what's important, and maybe what the guys are getting at, is you have to be purposeful as far as getting the ball up the floor and trying, when there's opportunities, certainly get it up, get into your offense quick, and if there's opportunities, whether it's a turnover or a different action, to certainly run. But I don't know how much different it'll look right now, but we're certainly trying to, look at some things with that shot clock, getting the ball up quicker when there's opportunities to get into your offense to have time or take advantage of some transition baskets. And then, again, this summer we worked a lot just playing some 3-on-3 and trying to just develop guys as much as we could skill-wise. And that's kind of how we always do it, come fall, and then definitely now we work on both, but there's certainly the emphasis of holding guys accountable defensively. This summer, I just bit my tongue a few times what I saw defensively, but I figure you only have so many bullets to get after them, and I save them for this start of it as far as the defense goes.
Okay, we'll go Paul and then
Hey, Tony. You lost 2 starters. One of them was an NBA first-round draft pick. The other was a very strong defensive player for you. You're still highly rated. Expectations are very high. How do you improve on last year, having lost 2 important players like that?
Even before, I don't know if any of you watched 2 nights ago, I got to see Joe play against Justin. That was just awesome for them. I was so proud of them and for our program. And, the first play, they got in together. I think Joe lost Justin and hit a 3 on him in the corner, and then a couple plays later, Justin caught an alley-oop, and I was just smiling. So that was great to see those guys out there doing well, and certainly seeing Darian. He's gotten in a few times, but just to be there on the bench with the Knicks is certainly good. So it's good. But those guys were very good players. They both, Justin and Darian, brought some things that were special. They could defensively erase mistakes. Darian could block those shots. Justin could do that definitely in transition. We've talked about that a lot. So I think it puts a premium defensively on us to even be trying to be sounder in better position, because you don't have guys like that. We got some guys who can block some shots and certainly do some things. So that will be a replacement, certainly. And then, of course, offensively, Justin, his ability to stretch the defense, make some big plays. We're going to be a different team this year. I say that every year, but our personnel's different. We decided to challenge ourselves in a way perhaps that we haven't, tried to play the very best non-conference schedule that we could find to test ourselves, to learn, to see where we're at, in hopes of it'll help us as the season progresses. That puts you in a spot to perhaps fail more. I understand that, but I think it'll be important, and we will not be a clone of last year. Certain things will look the same, different personnel, and I can't answer exactly where we're at. As far as the expectations, my expectation of them is just, every day are we becoming who we have to become. That does not change. Of course, we have aspirations to be as good as we can, and whatever that means. Is that better than last year? Is it not as good? Same thing I said to you, I think, last year at this time. But our guys have a lot of experience. I think that's really important heading into this, and it's always going to be great non-conference and conference competition. So we'll find out soon enough.
Okay, we have David, Doug, and then Hank.
For lack of better description, Brad Soderberg is the first set of new eyes on this program, really daily eyes since you've been here. What observations maybe has he been able to make, and insight has he been able to give you and the players?
Yeah, well, Orlando Vandross too. He's not on the floor, but he was an associate head coach at Boston and obviously at UNC Charlotte for so many years. So that's really valuable to me. I think that's significant because one thing, our staff was intact for so long, and I think everybody knows what to expect. I purposely didn't say a whole lot to Brad, and I told our players, same with Orlando, I just want you to watch him in the summer, watch him a little bit, and then give him your observations. I don't want to give you my biases. So I think that's been valuable, watching guys, just hearing his input on personnel, what he sees, watching a little bit of film. He watched us play throughout the years, and they incorporated some of the things that we did. But just areas where, hey, this is where you're strong, and, you know, as good as you were, these are areas that I see, and he and I have a similar upbringing in terms of who mentored us. So it's been valuable because I think he sees things maybe that I've haven't been on top of as much. You know, just certain areas when he was with my father at Wisconsin, when he was a head coach of a program, that we need to tighten. And I had him watch a lot of our games at the end of the year and say, what do you see? So that was very valuable. Same with Orlando. He comes from a different system. And, hey, what did you guys do in these spots? So I rely on that heavily, and I think Brad likes what he sees, certainly, but there's some areas he thought, hey, you hug off the ball defensively. You looked a little soft in this area. I think you could. Here's what we did that helped us. Fresh new drills in practice. Some drills that accomplish the same thing, but just a little different twist. So when you have a veteran team, I think you need those insights and some new things.
How do you make up for Darion's loss, not in the press interviews, but in the defensively as a post player?
The one thing Darian, as I said, he could block a lot of shots. He could do things. Darian had the ability to sometimes, you know, we trap the post. You guys all know that. But at times, Darian could just handle his own guy one-on-one. He was very strong and very quick. You'd watch him real explosive on ball screens. He could really disrupt. And, you know, I think the improvement certainly of our guys and Mike Tobey and Anthony Gill, but the other guys, I think Isaiah Wilkins he's not like Darian in terms of, you know, maybe as much of a post defender as physical, but he's very active. And I think Isaiah has that ability, you know, when you watch a guy, Keel used to do it, they can really reroute a dribbler when they're ball screen, and he's really help oriented. And perhaps what I alluded to before, he's very sound and in position. He's actually a great help defender, will pick up charges, and he's always plugging gaps and doing those kinds of things. So I think we have to make up for it. A guy like Isaiah, guys in great position, and just being a little more experienced, a little better, everybody all the way around defensively, because we don't have the exact guy like Darren. He could do that. He really could block those shots, and again, just one-on-one bother guys, and that's not to mention some of the things he did offensively, but that's the natural progression that, you know, every program faces.
Tony, it seems like we talk about this every year, but Mike seems like kind of a wild card for you guys because, you know, he'll play great in spurts and then kind of disappear and just has never found consistency. What kind of what do you expect from him this year, and what do you do as a coach to try to move that along? Yeah,
regarding Mike, I think this spring, summer, and fall, I saw him approach his development in the weight room, on the court, just workouts himself at another level. I saw that. Again, it's your last year. You see the light at the end of the tunnel. We've seen that before. Darian was like that last year. And he's had a good, I don't know what you want to call it, camp or a good preseason practices and early fall practices, physically, playing-wise, emotionally. So there's nothing like being in your last year, and I hope that confidence and hopefully the consistency, if he can be out there a little more, you know, avoid foul trouble, but establish some things offensively. Mike's always shown those flashes and good offensive rebounder, and certainly his size. So I'm excited for what I've seen, and he's had a few days in practice that he's been almost, you know, unstoppable at times, which that encouraged me because I didn't see that as much over the years. I'd see blips, but he's backed up 3 or 4 practices where he was doing things, worked on his outside shot a lot, and just some nice things he's done. So I'm hopeful for him. I mean, it's always a grind. It's always a struggle, but he worked at a level. I mean, most of our guys are really hard workers, and he always has been, but this was another gear, another level, which I think I hope will pay dividends. I believe it will, and he's going to be an important piece. I mean, losing Darian, losing Justin, he provides some offensive firepower, and even his shooting helps us too.
Jared, and then Paul.
Tony, what kind of things have you talked to Malcolm about in the off season and preseason, and about his role and leadership and What do you hope to get out of him this year?
Yeah, he had great experiences this offseason with going to that Nike, I don't know if they call it the Skills Academy, but playing with the top players and being mentored or tutored by, I think, guys like Pippen and Gary Payton, working against that. And then the Pan Am USA basketball experience was terrific. Just keep improving. He's a workhorse in terms of how he develops his game and what he does, but developing as much as he can in every area. I think they're just little incremental improvements. He's not going to all of a sudden, like your first year to second year, make this big jump, but just getting better and better, trying to figure out ways to make his teammates better, whether it's through leadership and his voice, and he's been very purposeful in practice up to this point. There's no question. I've seen him he'll bring his teammates with him. In the fall, taking some guys, say, you're working out with me, outside of our hours, and he shows them what it means to work hard on your game outside of our team practices. So those areas, and of course just his experience, his aggressiveness, and then that vocal leadership. I think just little areas stepping up, and he's obviously a key and has had so much success, but very purposeful this fall, more so than I've seen. And, again, like Mike, you're going into your last year, and I think they want to do it right. And he's obviously living, on the lawn or outside. And I think that was what I told him when he decided to come back. You can have it all, like in a good way. You can enjoy this experience. You can get your master's. You can develop your game. And then all those opportunities are going to be there at the end of next year. So there's nothing like being in your last year of college, playing in the ACC and being at a school like Virginia academically. So I think he's making the most of it, and he's obviously preparing himself to be as good as he can for this team.
Tony, I think 2 years ago there was at least an emphasis during the non-conference schedule on keeping hands off of players offensively, and it sort of seemed to go away as the season wore on. This year, from talking to other coaches, they feel like there's going to be that emphasis again, but it's not going to go away. It's going to last through the entire season. Just wondered how you thought that might affect the game.
Yeah, freedom of movement, that's always a key thing. Hard to say. I mean, I think there has to be physicality allowed, but clean physicality, that can be an advantage offensively, can be an advantage defensively. I mean, that's why we really try to talk about playing with great position, great help position off the ball, on the ball. We work hard on trying to keep our hands off in the way we play. And again, I think the shot clock is going to be interesting, how it affects teams. If you're really right defensively and people can't, any good defense you go against, you have to move it, shift it. It could put you in spots that are you're in the red zone or under 10 more often than not at times. But as far as how you play, the physicality, how it's called, your guess is as good as mine. I think they'll certainly try to keep it that way. I'm curious why they thought it'd be different this year. But we'll see.
Mike.
What do you foresee as the role for the freshmen? You do have so much experience on this team, and I'm curious, are there one or two veteran guys that are particularly good with the freshmen, with the rookies, or is everybody about the same?
They're all really good. I think so. I've noticed that from the time of Joe and Akil. That was just looking after those guys, because there's really only, a couple of new guys, 3 new guys. We can do things in practice, and we're not at step one where we're slowing it way down and telling them. So a lot of that's going on from the players on the sidelines, so we can be a little more efficient and get after it, and to be more advanced. But they're great that way, because I try to understand that they're first years, but sometimes I get angry at them, and then I realize they don't have, the 1,000 reps of the things that I'm talking about to the older guys. So the good thing that I see is you can tell who the less experienced or inexperienced guys are. They, in a lot of ways, they do definitely some good things, but they stand out a lot because they're just not where the other guys are, and it should be that way if your program is being built right. So I think there's some compassion from the older guys when they see these guys like, am I going to be able to figure this out? And this is hard. And so I think they do a good job of taking them to the side and challenging them and encouraging them. That's been great. Again, that really is all of them. They're all good that way.
Yeah, you guys can throw out some really big lineups this year. I'm just wondering about your size and kind of maybe if there's any plans to really take advantage of that. You know, you can play Darius or Malcolm at the 1 this year and just have some really big lineups. And I'm also wondering, in your recruiting, was that sort of a cognizant thing to get these guys who are all pretty long?
I think that helps you. You know, we just have had big physical guards. Let's start with that. You know, I think you want physical. It's a physical game. Of course, there's freedom of movement and rules are going to be called, but it is a physical game. And I think when you have longer physical guards, especially in our defensive system, that can help. It just clogs the court a little more. It helps guys get out to shooters with, you know, to contest shots. Offensively, you can post guards. You can do different things. So we've liked that. I've been fortunate, and I wouldn't say I would not take a guy because I want skilled and complete guys, but I like our size on the perimeter for sure. And then inside, you know, you're just looking certainly for different kinds of players, mobile guys. I think we have a good blend. I really do in terms of our athletic mobile guys, some thinner guys, but very mobile. And then we got a couple of physical guys. You know, I think of Jack and I think of Jared. And then what Coach Curtis, our strength coach, has done, you look at, you know, these guys have changed their bodies, which is the natural progression, but they worked hard to be as fit and strong as they can heading into this. A lot of you guys have not seen them. And so when you watch a little bit at the start of our practice, I'd be curious if you notice they're a little stronger. I think most people who haven't seen us, when they come in and watch, say, boy, you got a physical team. They look physical, so we look good in the airport and layup line. So I guess we got that going for us.
Norm and then Doug.
Tony, with London, you have a point guard that's just now entering his upperclassman years, but obviously extremely experienced to this point. What do you demand of him at this stage in his career that you might not demand of a point guard that wasn't quite as experienced?
Well, I think I'm hopeful. We've talked about this before. You're not going to change someone completely, but I think we want London to look for his shot a bit more. I think that'll help us. He doesn't have to go outside of himself and become someone he's not, but I think he has the ability to knock down shots. We've seen that, and I think that we talk about replacing some of these other guys. My hope is he'll have a bit more assertiveness within reason, looking for his offensive game or his offensive shot, and then just, again, that leadership up in his game, physically, all those things going. I think when you become an upperclassman, again, I think that's you see another jump, and I'm hopeful of that. And, you know, this year it was more Malcolm and London were our two we just played as our lead guards. Well, with Darius this year at Tennessee, he played some point guard. I think it gives us some flexibility that way where, you know, maybe at times Darius can bring the ball up the floor. If he and London on the floor, maybe London, our guards are interchangeable, but sometimes those things can help and allow him to maybe get a little more aggressive. And there's just a third ball handler. And, you know, Devin Hall has had another. He's done well this fall, and he can play some point as well. But I think, you know, London, our probably truest lead guards would be London and Darius, and maybe Malcolm. You know, Malcolm can do what you want, but we need Malcolm's aggressiveness for sure. So I think that'll help in some ways London. And again, being a junior in his upperclassman years, you'd like to see that, just that confidence, that aggressiveness, looking for things, but still seeing what needs to be done.
You've had some success with guys who redshirted, I guess.
Yeah, a lot.
Either because they had transfer or injury, Malcolm and Darius and not Darius.
Well, Mike Scott, Anthony Gill, Malcolm Brogdon, Darius, Jack Salt. Am I missing someone, Bach?
A couple guys sitting out now.
Yeah, Devin Hall, and now Mamadi and Austin. So I mentioned Anthony. Pay attention. So just kidding.
What have
Best friends since 5th grade. I can say that. So
talk about Darius, what you saw when he got here, and what you see.
Yeah.
How he's developed in the last year.
He was at. He played for Tennessee when we were in Raleigh at the that region. They played. Who did they play? They beat George Washington. I don't know who they beat first. And they went to the Sweet 16 and played Michigan. I had recruited him out of high school. Coach's son, really is good in the open floor. Can do some things long, as you're saying, Whitey. You know, not super physical, but can deflect passes, good off the ball. really can get in the lane and has vision. Off ball screens, he sees things well, and a good driver. He's worked hard on his shot. He's not gonna set the world on fire and look to just jack threes, but hopefully he'll keep improving in that. But he brings a lot of dimensions, and he's got, it's one thing to redshirt when you haven't played college, but to have played, I think he started about 17 games as a freshman for Tennessee and played in NCAA tournament games, then to come and then to go to work in a redshirt year, that's valuable. That's what Anthony Gill did. Those are our only two, and then Austin will be that. But I think those are the only two that have played college ball and redshirted. Well, Malcolm did actually. Yeah, he did, and then he got hurt. So I think they can use that as a resource.
Seems like we've talked about almost everyone who might be a potential starter except Mariel.
Mm-hmm.
And just curious of your impressions of him this offseason.
Yeah.
You mentioned Malcolm taking some people and wanted
He was one of them.
to one
It
of them to work out some of the others. But just your impressions of him.
Mariel said, "Boy, Malcolm works hard." He said, "Those are hard workouts." He'd take him in there, and he showed him what it was like to really train. And to your point, I think this year I say this again every year, but practices have been competitive because there's depth. You could make a case, there's 10 guys that could play, 9, 10, 11, depending upon the day, but there really is depth. And Mariel had the experience from last year, invaluable. Isaiah, those were probably the two first years that got put in spots that I think hopefully that experience will help them. Mariel is long, strong, athletic, can defend, has an ability to get to the lane, had a good off season. So he's a key in this too. That's where that depth comes in. We mentioned Darius, and I mentioned Devin. It's going to shake out. And that's the hard thing. Evan Nolte can play the 3 or the 4. So those are the decisions and seeing how it'll play out. That's where these practices are really valuable. Most of the time we've been splitting teams, trying to balance it, and they've been competitive. I've noticed Malcolm's team usually wins. I do, I think that's just, he's very driven that way. But I think that that depth is important. And Mariel, he's got some ability to get to the lane, and I think defensively I like what he can do, and he's a hard worker. He moves well without the ball. So, again, encouraged about all those guys. 2 scrimmages, open scrimmage, competition in practice, high-level non-conference. Hopefully things shake themselves out and we can settle on maybe it is more, maybe it's less. That's the long debate. Can you play 8, 9, 10? What is it? So I think guys are making it competitive, and that maybe there's a few more possessions because of the 30 seconds, so you'll need that depth to help you.
Tony, Jack Salt, every time we hear about him, we hear the word physical. Where does he kind of figure in this year?
Yeah, well, he said he very good screener. That's important. It's funny, a guy that I coached, I was talking about those guys in the NBA at Washington State for 4 years, Aaron Baines. We had a Detroit Pistons scout come to one of our practices, and after practice he said they signed Aaron Baines. I think it was like a 3-year, $20 million deal. Amazing story because he had to go to Europe first. He said, best screener I've ever seen in my time in the NBA. He said that stuff's valuable for NBA. People, there's specialized things. Asan was like that for us. He was a terrific screener. He was an active screener. He was a mobile screener. Jack headhunts. he really looks. That's what we say. That's what we say. When you make a pass, go headhunt instead of screen. I think that's okay. I don't know. There's no bounties out. There's none of that. Or not. This isn't. So, but he goes. We always talk about put a laser, and go in there and get people open with a good, strong legal screen. Legal. That's not anything. And I think that's and he's runs the floor hard. He keeps balls alive. He's not the most vertical, and he's a little more mechanical when you look at him, but he's really transformed his body and even his game. And he's had some practices where he looks, like he's a little newer to the game and he looks a little awkward. And there's practices where he is just a load, keeping the ball alive, nailing people. And again, a lot of our guys on the other team, that's a foul, and he gets them. Their heads are on a swivel. I think I said that last year when Jack's around because he's going to pop someone. And I think that's a valuable thing. So he's looked good. There's going to be games where there's big physical bodies because you got Toby, and then he's our next 6'10" long guy with physicality, and then we talked about that with Jared. But as far as experience, there's a future for him, and again, there'll be some good competition for opportunities for him, but gets people open.
The other thing I wanted to ask you is,
And he's a lefty.
a couple of us have fallen victim to Anthony Gill telling stories that weren't true and with a straight face and all that stuff.
Yeah.
What kind of value is it to a team to have a guy who's such a character like that?
Yeah, we got a few of them, but if you can't, we really demand a lot of our guys. We try to be purposeful and intense. But I think it's a great example that you can be that way and pursue what you're trying to pursue, but really enjoy it and have fun. If you can't have a joy about yourself and what you're doing, you're probably not doing the right thing. And Anthony's great that way. We have fun. I think our staff's like that and our players are, and that's even the way it is. So it's great. These guys have been around the block, and I think if it's all business and so serious, that's not the way it is. But yeah, no, he's great that way and has a great personality. I think his teammates enjoy it, but I think that shows you that he loves the game, loves having fun, and I think that definitely brings the right kind of attitude to what we want.
Okay, we've got time for a couple more. Jerry, and then Wade.
Tony, last year you guys were more inside out. Do you see it being reversed this year? And if so, are more the same, and what kind of a 3-point shooting team do you think you'll have?
Yeah, I think you when you have guys like Anthony Gill and Mike Toby, to start with those guys, they are good whether they're off the lane a little bit, on the lane, guys can step out and shoot. So you'll have to be that way. I think we have some guys who can really touch the paint off the dribble, whether there's some ball screen action or different things you're doing. Shooting, you lost Justin, who shot at a high clip. That remains to be seen. I don't know if we're this lights-out shooting team. I think we'll have to take good shots, opportunistic shots, and I think we have the word, and it'll play out. We'll see. I hope we have maybe a little more scores. They're more scorers than I'd say pure shooters, like when you look at some of our guys. And so I think I think that's, again, whether that's inside, outside, there's going to have to be a balance. But if we think we can live and die by the three, I don't think we're not made up like that this year, similar to last year, though Justin was a key in that. So, you're at that stage. We've had 13 practices, and, it's just you're going against each other. You kind of know your stuff, and I think we're getting closer to playing in an open setting, but going against some really good teams, scrimmages, and then regular season games that will kind of be telltale, because I don't have a feel for that yet.
Yeah, we've been hearing some stuff about a summer trip possibly to Barcelona and Madrid. Are you
Next
allowed to
summer.
announce that?
I don't see why I can't, I guess.
Yeah, I am.
Yeah.
Daily progress already approved.
Yeah, that's it. But yeah, every 4 years. 4 years ago, when we had a big incoming class, we took them to, went to Amsterdam, Belgium, went to Brussels, we went to Paris. There's one more, but that was really good. Culturally, it's great. It's team bonding, and then it's practices leading up, and then playing against pro teams. So we've got a big. There's a class. We got a lot of. I know I can't comment until they sign, but there's an influx of new guys that'll be joining. So that's a good time to do it.
Watch out for the elevators this time. Didn't some
Yes,
people
right.
get
They got
stuck?
stuck. That was the small elevator. That was quite a story. So.
Coach, with the increased depth of this team, the athleticism, and the scores, isn't there a likelihood that this team is more equipped to be a fast-breaking team than what you've had in the past?
I think, it all depends. Yeah, if there's opportunities to do that, absolutely. I think there's some guys. I mean, you're talking more athletic or not. I mean, you replaced we lost two very athletic guys. So, but I think if there's opportunity, I think it's always opportunistic, and I think the game will play a little faster because of that 30 seconds. But if you can steal some transition buckets, we always talk about it. If you can get a turnover, push. Sometimes if guards can get rebounds, go, and you just have to feel the game. Some teams will let you run. The good defensive teams shouldn't, and they don't usually let you run. So then you got to be good in the half court. But absolutely, you got to secure the rebound first and go. And that's where talked about having some guys, more lead guard types. That's always good for transition and, running the floor. Sometimes our guys, you play so hard defensively. There's times they use that time to rest when they're walking up the floor or slowly jogging. I think everybody doesn't understand. You can't just go all the time. But we'll hopefully get a right balance and go from there. And I got to mention that. Yeah. So I want to make this. We got our open scrimmage Saturday, and right now we're going to hold Momedy from that and practice. Because he's redshirting this year, the NCAA, he's got to get his final certification. You get 45 days grace period. Well, that ended. And because he's kind of at the bottom of the pile, they're doing guys that are eligible this year. They go through with foreign players. They final certify, make sure everything's good. So we were just informed that we have to wait until he's final certified before he can practice. So he will not be included in that today. And he's fulfilling some academic requirements, but then Saturday he won't be in that scrimmage. Austin Nichols in the scrimmage, he was injured and just has slowly started practicing. So we'll kind of get a feel if we'll use him a little bit or how much on Saturday's scrimmage. And I have no idea. I'm thankful, like I said, that'll be good. We've not done that. We've done it a little bit, but it seems like it's been advertised, so hopefully there'll be a nice turnout. And Pepsi, as I said, was generous enough to donate it so people can come in and be good for our guys to get out in front of people and get up and down and see where we're at.